Real time will be on. Real time will be on. And finally, new rule now that the Republican convention is finally over. Those of you thoroughly disgusted by what you witnessed have to look on the bright side. Win or lose, Donald Trump will probably be the last 50s guy to run for president. And frankly, that is something to be thankful for. Because 50s guys, you know, guys like Trump who actually say, I'm a 50s guy, we know what they mean.
I think that putting a wife to work is a very dangerous thing. When I come home and dinner's not ready, I go through the roof.
Yeah. The 50s guy. He likes steak, he keeps a bottle of scotch in his desk, and he thinks an educated woman should be locked up. I don't. He does. Really bright crowd. Okay. You know, Bill Clinton really nailed it when he said, if you thought something good came out of the 60s, you're probably a Democrat, and if you thought the 60s were bad, you're probably a Republican. And it's insights like that that are going to make him a great first lady. But that tension between 50s and 60s people is what still drives our politics today. It's true. You either think the 50s were great or the 60s were great. Or you weren't even born yet and you think, screw all you old farts, I'm voting for someone young like Bernie Sanders. Now, the 60s people like me, the 50s, are kind of like America's high school yearbook picture. With each passing year, they just get more and more embarrassing. But not to Donald Trump. He was born exactly 9 months after the end of World War II. He could have been conceived on this day, when America was on top of the world and the young Trump family was, by all accounts, very happy. When Trump was a kid, Eisenhower was always president, dinner made by Mom was always on the table, and the closest thing to an ethnic guy was Fonzie. People are a product of the time they grow up in. It's why Trump still wears a pompadour. Albeit one that's lost the will to live. If you're a 50s guy, even when you try to join the modern world, it's useless.
Look at my African-American over here. Look at him.
Not that they really want to, because for Trump and his fans, what was so great about the 50s was that white men didn't have to really try. He complains about rigged systems, but the 50s was the ultimate rigged system. For example, basketball teams looked like this. Trump was 10 when Elvis burst on the scene, and while other people had made music like that before, only Elvis had the insight to do it while being white. In the 50s, everybody knew their place and stayed in their lane. Lesbians were called roommates. And gay men were called priests. On a resume, a man could list sexual harassment under special skills. A tank of gas cost a nickel. And on a starry night, you could drive up to Makeout Point in your big gas-guzzling American car and get a handjob. From a girl. And nobody ever asked you to check your privilege. You didn't have to check. It was there all right. So when Republicans talk about restoring America, making it great again, taking their country back, this is where they want to take it back to. 1959, when life was still in black and white, before the 60s came along and ruined everything with color. Trump never fully adapted to color. That's why he's orange. Like the first color TVs, his tint knob is a little off. And he and all the 50s guys like him hold a deep resentment for those troublemakers and outside agitators who came along in the 60s and messed everything up by pointing out that the 50s weren't that great if you were black or gay or a woman, which is why Little Richard was always screaming. Okay, we're in overtime. We're in the we're in the air. We're in that internet air that's costing $12.95 in a hotel room. And these are the questions that have been sent in. Why doesn't education get more attention from politicians in this country? Well, it gets a lot of lip service.
Gets plenty of attention from Chris Christie. All of it negative, of course.
Chris Christie pissed me off. I'm from New Jersey.
I know. No, I mean, the best thing about Occupy Wall Street is that it's like saying, can we stop blaming everything on the teachers? I mean, it's also, seriously.
Right.
All the things we're unwilling or unable to do ourselves, we expect the teachers to do, and they fail because they can't be us.
The truth is no politician wants to tell the truth. And when the truth is, the problem is not overcrowding, the problem is not underfunding, the problem is not teachers' unions, the problem is not lack of computer equipment in the classroom, the problem is your damn kids. Who's going to say that and get elected?
Actually, the problem is the parents.
Well, in fairness, they had the kids.
No, I mean,
they raised the kids.
They've done many studies, and what they found is that kids where the parents read to them and there's books in the home as opposed to just TV and statues of Jesus.
Anything works.
Yes, anything works.
Anything works.
Right,
without that, nothing works.
But they asked, this is why Chris Christie pissed me off, because I got a pretty good public school education in New Jersey, and they asked him, like a month ago, what he thought about evolution. And he said, none of your business. Now, I could see saying that in Alabama, because I'm not from Alabama, so I can shit on it. But I'm from New Jersey. Maybe I'm trying to be a snob, but I think, well, my state in the Northeast, we're a little more sophisticated. We don't talk that way about evolution. But evolution is none of your business, Governor Fat Fatty? Jesus. That pissed me off. All right. Was it right for Lawrence O'Donnell to criticize Herman Cain, I saw this, for not participating in the civil rights demonstrations while he was in college? No, I love Lawrence O'Donnell. I love his show. I see it every day. But I actually felt bad. It was like when Michael Moore went to Charlton Heston's house, and I felt bad for Charlton Heston. But no, Lawrence, I love you. I don't think you should have gone after him for, he was kind of getting in Herman Cain's grill about not protesting in the early 60s and not going to Vietnam, which when Herman...
Oh, gosh. That's terrible. Not going to Vietnam. I hate people who didn't go to Vietnam.
Why do you say that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, because of all the bother I had to go to not go to Vietnam.
Right. I mean, yeah, you had to really work.
Communist homosexual dope addict with a bad back. And some people just don't go.
And the great thing is you don't have a bad back anymore.
Yes, I know.
We joke. I learned comedy at his knee, I'm telling you. To Richard Trumpka, do you see global unions as a possibility to combat free trade agreements?
Well, look, we have global organizations right now that are trying to get together so that we can help workers on both sides of the border. The idea is to bring up wages so that they can buy products from us as well as us buying from them. So we're actually working on that. We have one organization that puts together about 140 million workers around the world working together right now to try to increase the ability of workers to have a union and have a voice on the job.
As a right-wing Republican, I never thought I was going to say this, but I came back from China going, these people need unions. That just sucked over there.
I can't wait till you say it about Americans.
Well, let's not push it too. Let's not push your luck, But, what they call illegal immigrants. I kept hearing the term, illegal immigrants, in places like Guangzhou, and Shanghai and so on. They mean people from out of town. People from, who live like more than 15 miles from the city, right, who are in the city working without a legal permit, That was their illegal immigrants,
They sort of have they call it a union, but it's a appendage of the party. But this year, a number of wildcat strikes took place.
Yeah, it's happening.
They were demanding higher wages at Toyota plants, and then it went a little bit of everywhere, and they didn't know what to do with it because the official union came back and said, go back to work, and they said, no, we don't listen to you. And they actually elected their own leaders, a Democratic free union movement.
Small D Democrat.
Got started there.
What about whacking people? Do the unions still do that here? Because
you mean with that cane thing?
Well, we're in a union. We're in AFTRA.
We don't have a choice.
We're in a tough union. We're in a tough union. I mean, you cross one of our picket lines, we'll dress up in a Huckleberry Hound outfit and come over and scare your kids at the birthday party. You mess with AFTRA.
No, you don't want to mess with them.
No.
I know. No, I've had my
Huckleberry Hound is.
With Florida and other states moving up their primary dates to gain influence, wouldn't it be better and fair to have a national primary where everybody votes at the same time? I don't know. It might be. I think maybe regional primaries, you know, where one region votes and then another one. Maybe you could have it rotating.
But which would go first? That's
well, maybe.
yeah,
how about if you, you know, one year it's the Northeast and 1 year it's the South? Because the way it is now, come on. I mean, you get the evangelicals in Iowa. That's basically who runs the Republican.
Children of the corn.
The children of the corn, as I always call them. Yes. Then you go to crusty old grumpy New Hampshire people like P.J. O'Rourke.
Armed Tea Party members.
Yeah, who hate everything and everybody. They vote next. And then you go and a bunch of hayseeds in South Carolina, and then it's all over. Great system.
Well, I would worry about putting the candidates without any money at too much of a disadvantage. So if they've got a campaign in a whole region, having no money is a real disadvantage. Florida has 9 media markets. It's an expensive state in which to campaign statewide.
Yeah.
So I'm not, you know, weighing in one way or the other, but the smaller states having their primaries and doing that one at a time tends to level the playing field for some of the less funded candidates.
You can do the New Hampshire primary basically with 2 cases of beer, you know,
Right.
in your pickup.
Yeah, and a pickup truck. I mean,
I don't think people realize that Florida has that part that goes under
Alabama.
It almost goes to like Texas. It's, you know, that part where you probably are not very popular.
The further north you go, the further south you go. That's the way it is in Florida.
Really?
Yeah, but look, the basic problem is not the order of states. The basic problem is how money saturates the whole process. And I'm sorry, but
Well, good luck with getting rid of that. I tell you, you know.
well, we have to find a way because
It's not going to happen. Money's like water running downhill. You can put whatever you want in its way. It'll find a way around it.
well, when
Yeah, when you
foreign
have
corporations are deciding who is dog catcher of Podunk, Iowa, something's gone wrong.
Do you think you could ever win statewide election in Florida?
We'll see.
Really? You're going to
What about the
No,
dog
I
catcher?
don't know. I don't know. I'm running for Congress, not for statewide office.
All right. I wish I could vote for you. Thanks, folks. We got to go. Appreciate you, pal. All right, we're back here on Overtime, and I'm going to ask the questions that people have written in. Bill, is this country really as dumb as you say? I do always say that. Or is it just getting meaner? Oh, it's getting meaner and dumber. But definitely meaner. I mean, when you see those Republican debates and people cheering for executions and, you know, hating gay soldiers and...
But that, you think that's meaner than 100 years ago?
That I don't know, because I'm not a historian. You may be right.
Yeah. I think we all, there's 2 things that are almost always true. One is that the world keeps getting better, and 2 is that people always think it's getting worse.
Yeah.
And that, it's very, when I look back at like my dad looking at 1970, you know, where they've shot students at Kent State. The president is legally crazy. They are just printing money. The wars is going on like crazy in Vietnam. There's no end to anything. The inflation is through the roof. It just looks like it might look worse now, and maybe we just got older.
There's a new book out about this, about how people, just what you're saying, they think it's getting worse, but actually, when you look at what was going on in the 20th century...
There are fewer people starving.
Yeah.
There are fewer people dying at war. I mean, those are all good things.
Right.
Bad things happening now, bad things happening now, but you have to look at the big picture. I mean, no polio.
But I actually...
End of argument.
I actually don't think it's because people are getting better. I think our...
Oh, no, of course.
I
misspoke.
of course.
They're not getting better.
No, institutions restrain us more. But I just think, like, you know, they always say the police are the thin blue line. If you take them away, God knows what would happen. I agree.
I don't. I think people are really good.
You think people are really good?
Way good, yeah.
And human nature.
The vast
that is such bullshit. That is crazy.
Vast majority of people.
If you took away the police, it would be absolute tooth and it would be the red claw.
I do.
Even the pastor agrees with me.
Between 2 atheists, here I am.
You know, I love to talk about the book, and people raise their hands and say, if there is no heaven or hell, what's to stop me from just raping and killing anybody I want? And I always go, who's on your list? Because my list of people to kill is 0. I think everybody's list of people. Do you have someone on your list that you would actually kill?
Oh, just on this panel.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
My point is,
And it's not you.
and you say people are really bad. You think that without God they would just kill everybody?
No, I don't.
Who's on your list?
No, I don't think people would kill everybody if there were no God.
I think people are really good.
But it is all relative. I mean, I think people are good. The problem is none of us is good enough to meet God's standard. That's
well,
what
God's
we're believing.
standard, but not kill other people.
Here's what it is. I think people are situational. When you put them in a situation where they can commit heinous crimes, they would. I use the example
Not
of...
without help.
Do you remember the Nazi guard, Ivan the Terrible, John Demjanjuk? He was...
Dated him, but didn't know him well. But yes, of course.
Okay, well, this guy was, I mean, it was a bit debated whether he really was Ivan the Terrible, but they think he really was.
Yeah.
Okay, so he was during the war, the World War II, when it was okay to torture people and kill them. He was a vicious Nazi prison guard. Okay, fine, he did that. Then after the war, he slipped out of the country, and for the next 40 years, worked as an auto worker in Ohio. Courteous, on time, excellent worker, didn't bother anybody.
Great pension and benefits.
Yeah. Pension and benefits, exactly. So in other words, when the situation prohibited him from acting like a savage, he did not. And I think that's people.
But you also
when
have
they
to
could be
remember,
Nazi prison guards, lots of them.
You start naming people who have done horrendous things, and then I'll name the 6 billion alive now who haven't.
And again, it's because they didn't have the opportunity, or if they weren't put in that position. Really?
I don't think so. I think that we've
if there were marauding savages outside your door, you'd protect your family.
There's certainly the Milgram experiments and all that stuff that shows us a very negative thing. There's no doubt that that's on your side. But that is not proof that everyone is bad.
But if you're going to play a game, whether it's baseball or soccer or business or life, there need to be rules and referees. It's just like we all need to agree on what are the rules of the game.
There are, but some rules have to come from your heart, and some rules have
too much regulation, if that's what you're saying.
And to some extent, human nature has been the same for thousands.
Well, of course, we have a good time to evolve on that. Yeah,
that's right. And rules don't make anybody any holier. They're a restrainer against evil, but they don't make us holier.
But
not quite. Not quite.
But police forces do.
They do, but they don't make you better inside. They change your behavior, but they don't change the inside.
When the police decided to sit home in 1992 here, we had riots. And we would have them again if they did. Okay, do you believe that sex appeal is a factor in how news corporations choose their female anchors?
I hope so.
That's right. Exactly. Now if they could just do that with stewardesses.
Oh, boy.
You're so easy to make me make that sound. Okay. What did you think of the president's timing for directing the Justice Department's crackdown on medical cannabis dispensaries? Is this a diversion? A diversion? What, did he invade Cambodia?
He's invading America. It's disastrous.
I thought it was awful. I'm already holding my nose to vote for him because of what he did with the Bush tax cut. If I have to hold something else...
Prohibition
I think we should look.
It's just that simple.
I think we should have an honest debate. The marijuana laws should be liberalized, but they shouldn't be done under the guise that everybody is getting medical marijuana. Some people need medical marijuana, but most of that is just
the rest
in California.
Of us have party marijuana?
No, let's actually do it rather than have this.
I agree.
Fake medical marijuana.
Yeah, I agree. No, I've never had any marijuana, a sip of alcohol in my life.
Whoa.
But I want everybody to be able to. If you're not able to put what you want in your body, you're not living in a free society.
But let's do it through the front.
I want people to have that.
Right.
And that's from someone who may be the only one on the panel. Is a sip of alcohol ever?
Jack Daniel's ice cream. That's about it.
The only one. Okay, I haven't even had that. So
but it's not because I think it's sinful. Okay.
Oh, I'm an atheist and I don't do it, so you don't have to make that argument.
I have other reasons, but I don't think it's sinful.
And what about when Catholics drink the blood that's really wine?
Well, that's one of those strange teachings I was talking about. That's not in the Bible.
That's nasty business, Commander. Nasty.
Yeah, we do Welch's grape juice at our church. You'd love that a lot better, okay?
And you also have the product
I think the two of you could have a separate show.
I do, too. I think we could have a morning show.
Let's do it.
We don't know.
We'd be like Kathy Lee, and, we'd get a little bomb.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a buddy cop movie.
That's right. That's right.
He's an atheist. He's a Christian. But they're both cops.
All right, we gotta go. Thank you very much. Here on Overtime, and now we're going to ask the questions that the people on the internet have been typing. Lisa, here's one for you. Have you ever experienced a more hostile environment toward environmentalists than now?
I do think that what we're seeing is unprecedented, and I think that what amazes me the most is that the people aren't where the attackers are. You know, 75% of Americans, poll after poll, say that they want EPA to do its job, and they don't want politicians to tell them what's healthy and safe for them.
You know, I was going to ask you, did you always want to do this? I mean, when you were a young girl, did you say, I want to be a pollution fighter?
No, I grew up in New Orleans in the 9th Ward, and yeah, absolutely. And you know, one of the things we talk about a lot at EPA is that the environment is broader than the conservation movement, important as it is, that spawned it. That people of color now need to understand that when you talk about asthma, it's 1 in 12 in the population, it's 1 in 7 in Puerto Ricans. It's 1 in 8 or 9 in African Americans. So when we talked earlier about your air is my air, it disproportionately impacts people who, of course, can least afford to pay for the health care they'll need. All of that is a burden on society.
But why Puerto Ricans?
I don't know.
I'm just
I don't think it's
why
an
Puerto
honor they
Ricans
want.
get asthma so much. I'm not.
I don't think it's an honor they want. I do think that it's something. I don't know. I'm not a medical doctor, but I know that one of the things that we're working hard on is trying to figure out how to stop the air pollution that causes their attacks.
Especially among Puerto Ricans.
Listen.
I don't understand.
If you live in places where there are environmental causes for things, and then you end up less access to health care, then you end up having the diseases that are caused by environmental pollutants, right?
Okay.
I mean, you probably can't, anyway. I was just going to say, you probably can't spell that out like that because you're the EPA administrator and somebody will attack you as a Sharia law proponent for saying it.
Those are actual statistics, 1 in 7, 1 in 6,
Right.
and it costs all of us. It is not a Puerto Rican problem. It costs each and every one of us when that happens.
Okay. Do you think that teabaggers will ever get it that they're part of the 99%? No. Any question that starts with, do you think teabaggers will ever get it? I don't even need to read the rest of the card. Anyone who names themselves after a gay sex act doesn't get it. Do you think the demise of Obama's long-term health care program will affect his 2012 campaign? I didn't realize his long-term health care program was in demise. I don't know why I'm looking at you.
They knocked out a long-term care provision that was too expensive. I think, if anything, I mean, it's an important problem that needs to be addressed. If anything, I think it might help him slightly because he's able to say, listen, you know, the parts of my plan, it turned out not to work. I was reasonable. I got rid of them. You can trust me in another term.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the Constitution of the United States was not perfect on first draft. That's why we have amendments. You know, even those brilliant founding fathers were like, oh, fuck, we left some shit out. I had a quill. Somebody get me a quill. I had a whole...
Like it was us.
God damn it. I mean, you know.
We finally got it.
It's like, right, nothing is...
People act like Obama will be running in a void, that it's a referendum on him, yay or nay.
Right.
The Republicans are going to have to put up somebody who is a reasonable alternative, and I don't think there is one in the race. So then, if the alternative is not reasonable, then he might not be getting the approval ratings numbers that he wants, but still be reelected.
It's going to be Mitt Romney. And Mitt Romney, you know, some people, you know, knowing my religious antipathy, say, you know, Mitt Romney's a Mormon. Aren't you worried? I am not the least bit worried about Mitt Mormon being a Mormon. Mitt Mormon, because he's showed that he will do a 180 on absolutely anything. Trust me, the second Mitt Romney gets into office, he will institute the jobs plan that he is fighting so ferociously against right now. He has proved that he has absolutely no beliefs, and that will be his greatest asset.
Do you think that Romney can beat Obama?
You know, I do think Romney could beat him. I don't think he will. I know that I hear a lot of people say, well, you know, no president has ever won re-election with unemployment over so much %. Yeah, until it happens the first time.
Right.
Nothing happens. You know, everything is a rule until the rule changes. And I think this could be the election where the rule changes. I think unemployment will be high, and I think Obama will be the first president to be miraculously reelected with high unemployment, because things change and rules get rewritten.
The guy can't inspire passion.
Who?
Romney. And if he can't inspire passion in the electorate, then he's not going to be able to unseat an incumbent.
Well, it's not clear that Obama can inspire a whole lot of passion either this time around, no offense. But, you know, you look at his base, and they've been falling away. And you have these Occupy Wall Street protesters who, most of whom I imagine would have been Obama voters in 2008. I mean, he's got a difficulty in inspiring
But they're changing
people, too.
that. I mean, in the last few months, You know, I feel like, I don't know if you had a big meeting there at the White House and said, okay, we have a new strategy, but since he's been going around the country, standing under bridges and saying, we got to fix this, and this unemployment guy could be the one to do it, and really being in their face and taking it to them in their own districts and not being Mr. Conciliatory, I think he's become more popular. People like it better. And I think you're on your own version of that kind of tour, are you not?
Sure. You know, this idea too dirty to fail is my way of saying to the
Right.
American people, let's look at what's happening in Washington. My hope is still that the environment will come out of the political realm and we'll really talk about jobs, the things the American people want to talk about, the thing that the president is trying to get everybody to work on in Washington. And I do think that the president's made it clear that he's going to offer a real choice to the American people, a vision forward for this country that's built on clean energy, that's built on moving forward, thinking about where we need to be in the future. And, you know, my hope is that the environment won't be part of that debate, because it shouldn't be.
Right.
But there are lots of other very clear choices.
But also
that I
it
think
seems
are
like
gonna come to
you guys have just gotten the memo that for the American people to get behind you, you need a lot of just repetition. You just really got to get it through their thick skulls over and over. That's what the Republicans do. They say the same thing over and over. The Republicans see something that's polling at, you know, 85% approval rating, and they go, yeah, we can get it down to 50.
Yeah, but
That's doable. Yeah, they like the public option. They won't like it in 6 months, because every one of us will go out there every day and we will say it over and over and over. They're taking away your freedom with some other bullshit they'll make up, and they will move the polls. The Democrats do the opposite. They're afraid of the polls. And I feel like now maybe they're kind of getting that thing that you go out there every day, you stay on message, and you can't. The people, they don't.
Well, the problem is you have a lousy economy that isn't as susceptible to moving polls around as it is for some other issues. I mean, that's sort of the big albatross. I mean, I think that the best hope that Obama has is that whoever the Republican nominee is reflects the kinds of positions that they're taking in these debates. You know, wildly anti-unemployed, pro-Wall Street, anti-environment, that sort of thing. That's what you need to do right now to win the Republican nomination. But that's probably not a viable general election strategy.
I think the other thing that Obama is doing, in addition to just talking about the kind of agenda that you were describing, I think that was sort of where he was at for the whole first term. But what's happened in the last couple of months that you're identifying is that he is talking about why people don't feel like politics is working. What you're describing about how even if you can motivate people to want to do something, even if you can get people to agree wildly on something that needs to be done, there is still this frustration that the political system will never get it done. And what he started doing is being more confrontational about naming what's broken in politics and saying, you know what, this guy whose district that we're in, whose bridge abuts this side of the river where he's the member of Congress, he's voting no on this, and that's a problem, and you need to call him. And naming that is empowering, because it lets people know that it's not just going to this void, your anger and frustration, or even your hope, but there is a way to move things forward practically.
I think he got over this idea he had at the beginning that he could make everybody like him, including the conservatives. And I mean, do you notice it? Do you see a change in him in that way?
I also think we were busy doing a little thing. He was governing. I mean, there's been tremendous progress on a range of policy issues. Now he's going to talk about them, and I think he is going to talk about them in a way. The other thing, and I think, Rachel, you're absolutely right, he's where the people are. The people want to talk about jobs. They want to talk about a sensible solution on debt, and the people want to talk about having an EPA that works. Every poll shows that elected representatives inside that beltway are listening to somebody, but it doesn't seem to be their constituents. It seems to be people with big checkbooks.
All right. Thank you, everybody. That was terrific. Thank you, audience. I appreciate you coming in for us. Settlement. Have the banks paid a fair price for the damage they caused to the housing market?
Oh, not even close.
No?
And it's getting worse. They're going to be able to pay their fines with taxpayer money.
Now, what was the settlement? It was for $25
They paid back 25 cents, and we give them $10 billion in a tax break. I mean, the whole thing is, look, it's a bad deal, never should have been cut. The only good news, Eric Schneiderman is going to investigate and continue to investigate and hold their feet to the fire.
You agree with that, Steve?
No, I think the big problem with the housing crisis was that banks and mortgage people took out bad mortgages, and to treat people who are underwater on their mortgages as victims. Look, the one thing I don't want to do, I don't want to pay for other people's mortgages. I've got a bumper sticker on my car, honk if I paid your mortgage, and everywhere I go, people are honking at me. I mean, I'm sick.
Are you sure that's why they're
This is how the Tea Party movement started. People are tired of having to pay for other people's mistakes.
Oh, okay.
But we paid for the bank's mistakes.
Yeah, we shouldn't have done that either.
Yeah, but we did. And that's the problem.
But what shape would the country be in if we hadn't done that? What if we hadn't paid for the bank's mistakes? What if we hadn't bailed out the American automobile industry? I mean, I saw the head of GM yesterday on the news say, look, I'm not trying to get political. He said, I don't want to alienate anybody who might buy a car as a Republican. But he said if Obama didn't do that, we'd be dead.
What we should have done is cut a deal with the banks that made sense way back. When we gave them the $10 trillion, we should have said, now you reform the mortgages, change your practices, restructure the industry. Be banks, not hedge funds. They missed the opportunity.
And we should have put Fannie and Freddie out of business, which we still haven't done.
Maybe so.
Here's one you and I might agree on. Okay. Does President Obama's budget adequately address entitlement spending?
Is that a trick question?
No. I say no.
Obviously, no.
I bet you say no.
No, obviously, there's no entitlement
response. Really matter.
And these things are like Pac-Man. They're eating the whole budget. They're eating our whole country.
Yeah. Well, there is some. I mean,
I
think there's $360 billion cut out of.
Yeah, out of like $10 trillion we're just going to spend over the next 10 years.
None of it is going through, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
I mean, the budget doesn't matter at all. It's been passed in a couple of years.
Well, that's what presidents do. They release a budget. It's sort of a blueprint to work off of. At least this budget from this president was, for the first time, what he wanted, I thought. Right. I think he's learning to negotiate. Start with what you really want.
Who's honest?
And then when you come back to the middle, you'll get half of what you want, as opposed to
give it away
thinking the other guys are nice. How much would voter turnout be affected if elections were held on Saturdays? Oh, I think a lot. I think a lot more people would vote if they had, and this is what most countries have. You know, it's a holiday. It should be a holiday. You shouldn't have to, like, leave work or maybe not be able to vote at all because you have to work, you know.
Or do electronic. Or that. There's so many ways. And the issue of fraud in voting, of course, you got to be vigilant. We all believe in that. It's really a canard. We can do so many things to get voter participation to the point where it is in Australia, other countries. We should.
I'm not sure about the 18-29 demographic, though, with Saturday voting. I think they like getting out of work and going on Tuesdays.
But lots of people can't get out of work.
Well, that's true.
Lots of poor people, you know, their boss is not going to say, sure, take off 2 hours. I mean, I think the last 2 or 3 elections we've had would be different if more people could have gotten off from work or weren't working that day.
You mean McCain might have won?
That's not. No, I was thinking more of the Bush election.
The other idea I always liked was have one person who votes get a lottery ticket worth $1 million. So everybody's going to turn out and vote and hope they get the one ticket.
Wow.
I don't know whose idea it was, but yeah, we'd all show up, right?
I never heard that. Right.
Yeah.
So bribe them, just like
hey, it works.
You know, they're doing that with kids in school now.
That's right. Good grades, you get money.
Bribing kids to go to school. I don't know if that's the best psychological message to send in this country, that we have to pay you to vote and go to school. We are such greedy bastards. Okay. Why is Obama becoming the worst pot president ever? Why doesn't he honor his pledge not to interfere in state medical marijuana rights? Well, my theory is because he's got a lot of other things on his plate. And
that's another issue you and I agree on, is legalizing pot for marijuana for medical purposes. I mean, why shouldn't people? It is a very effective painkiller for people on chemotherapy and so on. And it's cruel.
Why does it have to be just medical?
Well, I'm with you on that too.
Really?
Yeah, I am. I'm a libertarian.
Yeah, right.
Are you with us on that?
Yeah, medical marijuana. Yeah.
See, we got to.
And what about regular?
You know, look, we should decriminalize it because to spend prosecutorial resources on pot is ridiculous.
Well, is there a difference between legal and decriminal?
Yeah, I mean, basically...
You don't put people in jail.
Yeah, I mean, you don't put them in jail, you give them a $5 fine. So why not just legalize it? We probably should. I mean, I think about things...
Why a fine?
A $5 fine?
No, I'd be in favor of legalize pot. Legalizing pot is the right way to go.
Look, I got him over right here on the air. I got him over from decriminal to legal. Great. After the show, we'll get him over to...
He's never going to get reelected now.
Do you think that Chris Christie's veto of the gay marriage bill is not only dickish... but also extremely short-sighted?
Well, it depends on which short-sighted you're going for. I mean, the guy's probably going to run in 2016. So for him,
running for president, you're talking?
Running for president.
If not before. If not before.
Well, yeah, if not before on a ticket, but he's doing it for his base. But yeah, I mean, when we went through the don't ask, don't tell reversal about a year ago, there were 8 Republicans in the Senate who sided with Democrats on that, and 5 of them were moderates from blue states, and 3 of them were younger conservative Republicans. So I think it's sort of a generational thing. It was John Ensign, Richard Burr, and Lisa Murkowski. But it's more of a generational thing, and yeah, in 20 years it'll probably be a more normalized thing for most states.
Okay. But New Jersey, I mean, it's my home state. So I take these things a little personally, When somebody from New Jersey does something that I consider sort of backward, and I consider this sort of backward on the part of the governor, it bothers me. It's like, New Jersey, the most made fun of state. I mean, growing up, when you're from New Jersey, and it's not just from people from far away, it's people in the area make fun of New Jersey. So the one thing we had was always like, well, we're from the sophisticated state of New Jersey, from the Northeast. We're not some, like, yokel car on the lawn state. We're not from Alabama or Kansas or somewhere. And then when the governor does something like this, or said that evolution was none of your business, it just really, really bothers me. It just really does. It takes away the one thing I had.
Look, but can I say this? It is typical of so much that Chris Christie does. I mean, he panders to the very conservative on pronouncements on all sorts of issues, and he's just wrong on the fundamentals.
Could he be the savior of the party if they go to a convention? If the
he's by far the most attractive candidate. He's gifted. He's tough. He's a good speaker. And look, you want to have this next presidential election be about gay marriage? I mean, that's one of the reasons that the Democrats lost.
Yeah, but look, on the idea of a savior for the Republican Party, I have met next to no one who has said, I just can't wait for President Rick Santorum. I've met a few who say that about Mitt Romney. I've met a ton of people who really want Chris Christie to be the next president.
Chris Christie's your worst nightmare.
Why? Because he could win.
Because he could win.
Yeah.
Well, then he could be that guy.
Right.
Okay.
I don't buy it. But I'm a Democrat, so what do I know?
I would rather the Democrats run against Rick Santorum than Chris Christie.
Absolutely. I agree with that. But I don't think Chris Christie withstands the scrutiny, because when you look at so many of the positions he's taken, I just don't think people at the end of the day, either in the Republican Party...
Compared to Rick Santorum's platform...
You can't use Rick Santorum.
Let's bomb Iran and outlaw fucking...
You don't understand.
I think Chris Christie...
You both are missing the point. 40% of Americans are obese. He's got 40% of the vote locked up.
All right, we got to go. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, panel. I was saying to Bob right before we closed the show, he should have a show on CNBC. Wouldn't he be great on that?
He'd be on it.
He was so good on it. He should have a show on CNBC. We'll cut out that first part where they don't cheer. We'll go right to the cheering, Bob. Okay. All right. So, flying herpes. What a name. Flying herpes. Neil, which future that's you. Neil, which future scientific breakthrough are you looking forward to the most?
I
can answer that.
Okay. What?
Curing old age. Do you agree with that, Bob?
Absolutely.
We want to cure old age,
sir.
so we don't.
I worry that if you live forever, you will lose the urge to bring intensity to your life.
I'd like to give it a shot, though.
You could always just do it tomorrow.
Right. I wonder how much you'd worry about that when you're dying.
But in fact, my life is given that much more meaning knowing that I'm going to die. And I use that to exploit every moment of life.
But when that moment comes, I predict you will change.
If I had a full life, I would say what Einstein said when they said we can operate on you and prolong your life, and he said, my work is done.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. I'm not that good.
Yeah. Meaning is overrated.
Right. Okay.
If you, okay.
No, go ahead.
No, we're good.
All right. Do you think the American automotive industry will ever fully shift from gasoline to biofuel or electric? You like electric cars.
Yes, I do. Because electricity is inherently more efficient. The only problem right now is battery technology doesn't quite give us enough range yet. You fill a car like the new Tesla with a $30,000 or $40,000 battery pack, you can get 300 miles. But that's not a real commercial proposition. But in about 5 years, we'll have lithium sulfur. In about 10 years, we'll have lithium air. Then we'll have about 10 times the energy density of today's lithium-ion batteries, and you'll have a car with a relatively small battery pack. With every morning after you've plugged it in, you've got a 400-mile range in the car. At that point, I think we can kiss the internal combustion engine goodbye for cars.
Well, just for the long commute, right? The 400-mile radius.
Well, but this gives you something that no gasoline car has, which is every morning when you start, you've got a full 400-mile tank.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a gradual transition.
Okay. Nathan Wold asks, regarding Matt Taibbi's recent obituary, Andrew Breitbart, death of a douche, what level of rhetoric is acceptable upon someone's passing, and should we respect the dead? Well, let me put that in perspective, because I've read many places, I didn't remember this, but when when Ted Kennedy died, Andrew Breitbart wrote that day on his Twitter that he was human excrement. So, just because somebody else does something shitty doesn't mean I would. So I don't agree with that, but I didn't realize that Matt Taibbi wrote this already.
This phrase, people often say, you should not speak ill of the dead, right? I mean, when is a better time to speak ill of someone than when they're dead? It's the time when people die to a
No, it's
for the fan.
But it's a time.
It's cowardice, because if they were alive, they'd jump up and kick your ass.
No, people.
You wait till the dead and then say what you want about him?
Dude, people spoke ill of Andrew Breitbart when he was alive, for one thing.
Well, then,
and for another thing, when people die, people assess their work and assess their lives and come up with some conclusions. And Andrew Breitbart certainly has never been restrained when it came to offering posthumous, harsh judgment.
Don't we do it because of the family?
Well,
isn't that why you don't do it? Because the family has enough to deal with at the moment somebody dies, so you don't pile on.
Hey, but I read a lot of, in the paper today coming out on the airplane, I read a lot of, progressive commentary, which said we didn't agree with his views, but he was passionate, he was a brilliant writer, he stated his case well, et cetera, et cetera. So,
the guy died at 43 with 4 kids. That's different than dying at 86, and you know what I mean? It's a little different, but I know Matt, like John, he'd been on glass, and he would have said, there's nothing he said, it wouldn't have said before, probably said it to his face. I mean, correct. He's not a two-faced guy at all. He'd stab you right in the stomach.
Okay. David A. asks, a couple of weeks ago, Bill, that must be me, said that today there could not be a couple like James and Mary Matlin. I'd like to ask Mr. Carville if he agrees. Well, yeah, I guess.
But don't they exist today?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, with the kind of polarization we have in our politics,
they couldn't meet today and marry.
That's what I think. That's what I was saying.
I hear people always come up to me time and time again every day and say, my wife's a Republican, I'm a Democrat, or vice versa. And you see that all the time. People are going to fall in love and get married all the time. Jim, people are going to marry Ford people. And, it's just the industry you're in.
Why don't you just admit that you and Mary are a figment of all of our imaginations?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. When I get home and get a wood shampoo, it ain't going to be a figment of anything. The rolling pin. What did you say on there?
Oh, that's a wood shampoo. Wow, I never spoke gator. I didn't know that. A wood shampoo. I had never heard that.
It's the only kind I get.
That's wonderful. All right. There was another school shooting this week and no real conversation about gun control. That always happens in America.
I'm glad I live in New York City where it's safe.
What type of tragedy will have to happen before such a thing could take place? I don't know.
The apocalypse.
I mean, guns in America is religion. Yes. That's people love their guns much more than their Bible. They don't actually read the Bible, but they really polish the guns.
Yeah. That's true.
And shoot them, too.
It's a
I think you tackled the Second Amendment at your peril if you're a politician.
Well, that's what the Democrats learned in 2000 when Al Gore lost his home state of Tennessee, and they blamed it on his stance on gun
Bush
control.
lost his home country, the United States. Yeah, he lost the popular vote in the United States. He couldn't carry his own country.
I see what you're
saying. It's a bank shot.
Yeah, it was a bank shot.
It's a smart show, Bill.
It's a very smart show, you're right, and I wasn't very smart. I was still working on the wood rolling pin. I'm sorry.
Wood shampoo.
Wood shampoo. How can the candidates make false promises on gas prices when, in fact, the power resides outside of their control? How?
Politicians cannot
exercise any control of gas prices other than driving them up by adding more taxes, which I always say, if I were Emperor of the United States, which is the only position I would accept, or be qualified for since I was born in Switzerland, but I would add 25 cents a gallon federal tax revenue until fuel, and that would give people a chance to start adjusting their purchases because they're projecting gas prices out into the future. At least there'd be some certainty, and it would drive people into more fuel-efficient vehicles. But other than going up, to say that if elected, I will make sure that gasoline goes to $2.50 a gallon is patently absurd.
I don't know if I agree with that premise that politicians can't affect prices. The reason why the gas prices are high now is because of Iran. It's not because of supply. It's because they're talking about a war with Iran. That, what?
But Bill,
you know this?
No. It's always going to be the marginal barrel somewhere in the world, and speculation and expectation
but you know what?
that drives the
10 years
price.
ago, speculators only controlled 30% of the market.
Yeah.
Now they control 80% of the market. That's a big difference.
Rex Tillerson, the CEO of Exxon, says that speculation is 30%. I don't know, but if he says 30, that's your base
But 30,
price.
even if it is 30, that's enough to put upward price pressures on the thing. The original question was, I think, can politicians make a promise to say, if elected, I will make sure that gasoline prices go down? I think that is the most unfulfillable promise that any politician could make.
There's a lot of competition for that, too.
Yeah. You will address it on your new CNBC show.
Thank you, sir.
That starts in a couple of months. All right. Thank you, everybody. We got to go.
Don't miss special episodes of Real Time with Bill Maher, live, immediately following the Republican National Convention.